So could I have the panel please coming forward and sit with me? Panel, please come forward. We're going to have everybody come up right now. So this is typical. No one wants to sit by the teacher. So.
Nobody wants to do it.
Okay.
I'd be there.
Sorry, you want to j'ai pas vu que vous étiez. Je voyais tout le monde se décaler.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Dr. Michelle Thompson. And I know we have a lot of exciting things that we're interested in, but if we could, folks in the back of the room, thank you so much. So our panel has changed a bit. The title, Inclusive Governance and Social Cohesion for Healthy Communities, broadens the topic that we're going to be talking about today, and we also have an additional speaker that's going to join us. I think everyone's heard enough about that 7-minute warning, and it hasn't been heeded, so I'm not going to repeat that. So I want to take a few moments because I really wanted to provide context as to why the panel is important, and also why am I here? Because it is my passion for data, connecting with community, and making sure that what we're talking about here has tangible relevance. So first and foremost, thank you for the conference organizers. Thank you for everyone who put things together. My good friend Catherine A. Rudd-Gall and Carlos Moreno, wherever he is, and everyone who I can't name, who I'm just glad that this conference I didn't get all the text messages in preparation. So before 2009, I was a residential real estate appraiser in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So some of the things that I heard today really brought back to me, what is it about data and mapping and doing practical projects that made all the difference and will continue to make a difference, whether you're in times of economic prosperity or coming up from different challenges. In 2007, I was then a PhD student at Cornell and was asked to lead a team of 70 students and 3 different colleges to go and map the lower Ninth Ward. And this, of course, was 2 years after Katrina. And if you can imagine, I'm from central New York. I didn't even know where Louisiana was. And we went down to the lower Ninth Ward, and there were a couple big problems. The first was the city, certainly after 2 years, didn't have the capacity to provide us with some of the information and the data that we thought we needed to be able to begin mapping. There was also a hold on the parcel layer, and for those who aren't geeks, that's the layer that we need to connect with the data that we found in the field, because it was being held hostage by one of the, well, I won't say his name, but let's just say he knows who he is. The biggest issue about that whole mapping exercise was there were 2 problems in NOLA already, New Orleans, Louisiana, NOLA, after Katrina. No one wanted to hear the word FEMA, and no one wanted to hear the word planner. Fortunately, I was not a planner. I was a person who had some technology and wanted to make sure that the data and the resources were given to the community, provided to the community, and at no cost. The inspiration for that actually came when I was a graduate student, and then I became the real estate appraiser and saw in the city of Boston that in neighborhoods that needed access to materials and resources, their assessments were higher than they could sell the houses for. But in the more stable neighborhoods, They were very similar. So I then realized, here is a time for those who can remember this, a computer of 40, 633, forget about it. Floppy disk, forget about it. But the real issue is the power of data and the accessibility was not like it is today. So fast forward quite a few years. I continued on, and I'm jumping back to New Orleans, where in 2007, when I came down, I had no connection, but I realized that here's a city that is trying to recover and in recovery. And still, there was no real connectivity with the city, the community, and the data. And so I was a real estate appraiser. I then connected with the city, and they said, we have some data systems, but we don't know how to get this information to the community. I then was hired by the University of New Orleans, and my job really was to figure out how can we get the data, how can we help communicate with folks on the ground what's going on, and how can we, they hate to say this, empower the neighborhood. That didn't work very well. Because simply, there was no trust, there was no foundation for really helping community. And at the university, the idea of service learning, it's chic now, but it wasn't then. So the idea of the theory of public participation geographic information systems, or PPGIS, is what I wanted to really show can work. Can we get the pro bono, otherwise known as free students, to go out and do mapping? Can we go and meet with the community and say, what is it that you need, want, and desire? In 2007, 8, 9, 10, it was recovery. 15s, 17s, it was somewhat economic development. And then, of course, COVID hits. What happens throughout this time, the politics change. And my good friend from Boston, we won't talk more about politics, but the reality is that the city of New Orleans didn't have the kind of systems available, didn't have the resources. But the will of Mayor Mitch Landrieu, he said, we're going to put together this blight stat. We're going to bring all the data that's needed together, and we're going to open it up to the community so everyone knows what's going on. And those are the examples that I'm hoping that we'll hear from today. What were the challenges in the city? How did you overcome them? But most importantly, how did you bring community in? Is it bottom up? Was it top down? My last thought that it came to mind was that at the time, City Councilor LaToya Cantrell had seen a few of our maps from the lower Ninth Ward. And she said, what are you going to do with a box of crayons and paper? What is that going to do? How is that going to help? Well, then she became mayor and said, we're looking for those maps from the lower Ninth Ward. And we want to use those to figure out where to mow all of the empty lots where houses and people used to be. A final note on the lower Ninth Ward. It's been 20 years, as many people know. There is still not a fully functioning grocery store in the lower Ninth Ward. People have to go across a bridge, across the levee, and they're temporary food places that they can get at higher prices. So there's still a lot of challenges. But I'm hoping that this panel will bring forth some great ideas of their experiences and share some practical ways and tips for us to think about as we go forward. So thank you for that. So our first speaker, and I did practice the names, but please forgive me, Anouch Toranian. Anouch is Deputy Mayor of Paris, responsible for associate life, citizen participation, and public debate. Elected in the 15th arrondissement, she has served as Deputy Mayor since 2020. She holds a master's in international law from Pantheon Assas University and a master's in public affairs from Sciences Po. please.
Bonjour. Bon, d'abord, merci beaucoup pour l'introduction.
Good afternoon. Thank you for that introduction. I am very excited to participate in this roundtable, and welcome to Paris on behalf of the Mayor of Paris and the Executive of Paris. I see lots of people here today, so welcome to you. I'm very excited to talk about citizen participation, which is part of my portfolio as my role as Deputy Mayor of Paris, because as you probably know, Paris has a long history in citizen participation. And in 2020, when the mayor was re-elected, one of her priorities was to strengthen the participation of citizens in transforming the city. All of this was to face one of the biggest challenges of our society, of our era, at all levels, local and international, which is the crisis of democracy, which is made manifest by different aspects. High levels of abstentions in elections, certain mistrust vis-à-vis authorities and politics in general, and in France and in Europe, and in fact around the world, the rise of extremism. And so the mayor realized that it was her prerogative, or the prerogative of the city of Paris as elected officials, was to really combat this democratic crisis, which was not inevitable, and to really bring in citizens. So not just do it for citizens, but also through, by citizens. And so we really bolstered this policy to foster local democracy and citizen participation through 3 pillars. So training for citizens, because we thought that it was important for them to be able to understand how the city works, to combat this mistrust toward politics, but also explain the challenges that we face, to give them the opportunity to share the power, so to be consulted, but give them part of the control over the budget, to really have a core impact on municipal legislation. And thirdly, we decided that in order to be resilient, we needed citizens to be at the heart of the rethinking of the city. So we needed to empower them and work hand in hand. And COVID in 2020 really showed how important that was, when we realized we were all being told to keep apart from each other, but actually what we saw was lots of people coming together. And so we need resilience to face all of these challenges. And in order to do that, they need to be empowered, and we need to work together and at a local level. The participatory budget was one project, and also the Citizens' Assembly, citizen votes, and all of these tools were highly beneficial at 3 levels. First of all, people were empowered. They were able to understand how the city works, and therefore able to understand the constraints, the difficulties that we face as a public administration, but also how rich and diverse participation can be. And because the ideas that came out of these projects were better adapted to needs, because of course they were founded in their daily experiences within their local areas. So of course the results were a lot richer, especially the alternative being, we doing it in an office from a very centralized perspective. And I also think that it collectively reinforced the sense of responsibility, of accountability, that we are joining forces. We're not seeing it through an individualistic lens, but more of a collective approach. So instead of being against each other, we were sort of joining forces. And so through the deliberations and the consultations, people kind of moved away from their more individual perspectives and had a more collective solutions approach in order to bolster the resilience of the city. Now, there are prerequisites when looking at citizen participation in a city like Paris. because we need to have a proximity focus, and this is what the mayor called the Big Bang of proximity. So realize that decisions couldn't be made from a central entity. We needed to decentralize, to devolve decision-making to the arrondissement, but even beyond that, to the citizens themselves, so that they, at their scale, at their level, be able to take charge of their own communities. Now, that, of course, is key, because we see that citizens do want to take action, and they do want to take charge of decision-makers. Now, we've talked a lot about the 15-minute city, this Carlos Moreno's concept that really does go to show that in Paris, at the very least, we do have this vision of proximity in public service. So what we needed to do was to enable the people to directly transform their local areas. And so all of our projects were deployed at a very local level. There were Paris-wide projects, but alongside them there were always local level projects. And that was highly beneficial. And we created local participatory budgets, citizens voting, so this micro-local level, which is highly important. And to conclude, there are two prerequisites when it comes to citizen participation. Now, it needs to be representative, especially in such a diverse city like Paris, because there are very vulnerable areas where people, are struggling, and so we need to make sure that these projects really do represent all demographics and all areas, to make sure that there is a meaningful impact behind all these projects. And also, we do need a lot of courage to implement this, such a bold policy as this one that led by the mayor of Paris. But it's important to recognize that citizens are key in order to bolster social cohesion and to make sure that collectively we can face the challenges that lie ahead of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and certainly on the timing. So this, what you've explained, and I'm very new at the feedback immediately, but I'll try to, what I've just gotten from that is such an amazing opportunity from top-down management that actually works, that was thinking about the community and implementing it. Because you had all the power and control, right? I'm going to say it the way it sounds, but I think what's also interesting is, and I'm glad you said that, it's the 15-minute city concept and the idea of proximity. It does and is for all community, but not all community are ready or can be ready. And so part of another reason I'm here is my daughter happened to, well, still is working for the International Olympic Committee, and took me to the 18th arrondissement and said, Mom, I think there's some work that can be done in this community, and connected me there. And it was because of what Mayor Anne Hidalgo was trying to implement, that there was an excitement around being able to actually go to the city and talk about what could be done. And truly the connection, which I'm trying to weave this all in at once, is that after I met with the community, I said, there's got to be a local partner. We already had the city of Paris. And that's when I kindly stalked Carlos for a while, and then he turned me over to Catherine and said, this is how we can put together a partnership. So I think that's what I'm hearing from this kind of work. Thank you. So our next speaker is Frédéric Vallier. Has been Secretary General of the AIMF, International Association of Francophone Mayors, since June 2024, and brings over 30 years of experience in local governance and public affairs. From 2010 to 2022, he served as Secretary General of the Council of European Municipalities and Regions, promoting sustainable development, climate action, and decentralization, and contributing to the SDGs and new agenda at the UN Previously, he held senior roles in local government, including Deputy Chief of Staff to the Mayor of Nantes, Head of European Affairs of Nantes Metropole, and Deputy Mayor of Fresnes. He holds a degree in Foreign Literature and Civilization from the University of Angers and a graduate of Sciences Po Paris.
Merci. Thank you, Michel, for all this resume. But as we grow old, it's getting longer and longer. So. Merci, merci beaucoup et merci.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for being here. So I'll say a word on the IMF to explain what the organization is, because not everyone knows about it. So it's the International Association for French-speaking Mayors, which has 350 member cities in more than 30 countries, including New Orleans. And it's got a two-pronged objective. First, to gather French-speaking mayors together so that they can exchange about their practices and learn from one another. And also, we are a developer. When we finance development projects in cities, so we actually spur local development and local public policies. The president is the mayor of Paris, and we are working on several priorities that were defined by the elected representatives from our organization, and including by the mayor of Paris. I'll give you two examples of priorities. So climate, which is really one of the marker of Anne Hidalgo's work, and then gender equality, which is also a strong commitment of our organization. And that was requested by actually female elected representatives, and there's more and more of them in the world, fortunately. And also the AIMF has actually worked on this, so that there's more and more networks of female elected representatives to support them so that they can better handle their responsibilities, and to strengthen also the role of women in local actions and local policies. So that's the two main priorities I wanted to mention, because we've actually implemented projects for an inclusive government in cities, where every citizen, male or female, can become a stakeholder and an actor in their own city. So the idea is not just to listen to the city dwellers, but to ensure that they can actually act. They become actors, which is something that we are doing, for example, in Paris, but also in an increasing number of cities, and especially in cities in the global south, although I'm not a fan of this expression, where there's many things to be done, and where, at the end of the day, citizens are organizing themselves, and where the public administrations can actually support them to organize them better. I'm thinking here, for example, of African cities where really local residents are organizing themselves to develop local services which are lacking. But it can be like it can work both ways. So it can be like local administration actually turn to citizens so that they can take part in the development of city, but it can also be citizens that actually turn to the local administration to tell them, listen, we've already developed a local service, for example, to clean the streets, and please help us, change, upscale it. So I was also saying that we worked on the presence of the participation of female elected representatives to decision-making processes. Because in many cities of the world, women are actually on the first line of economic activity. It's very often women who are, for example, working in shops or retail. In many southern countries, they also work in agriculture. and they sell on the market. But yet the role of women is not always recognized as it should. And women are not always recognized as agents of city development. And so one of the commitments of the IIMF is to ensure that the role of women is being recognized, their role in the economic development of local territories, and to support their work through specific actions. For example, we are currently implementing a program in Cameroon, and actually I will have to leave early because I'm going to Cameroon tomorrow. And the program is called Hedeya, which was implemented with female mayors from Cameroon public collectivities, and it's in favor of city electrification and lighting, which is crucial for security. And by having electricity in markets as well, then it actually spurs economic activity, and it can actually be extended into the later hours at night. And so this actually gives more economic power with women while ensuring their security in the city. We're also supporting networks of female elected representatives to support their role in municipal councils, for example, in town halls. So there's many projects to support them politically and locally. And again, if I go back to the example of Cameroon, well, about 15 years ago, there were only 2 female mayors in the country, and now there are about 60 of them. Do I have any time left? So, that was just an example, but I also wanted to mention, to speak about youth. The fact that youth also have the possibility to involve themselves in the city, to develop economic activities and to become more self-reliant. We also know that demography, especially in African cities, is fast increasing. And part of the problems on the African continent is to give its youth opportunities to develop their own economic activities, to become self-sufficient, self-reliant, and to have a family. So all those actions also work in favor of more commitment of citizens to develop their community. And that's really what we are working on as an organization. And I'll stop here because I've already spoken too much. Thank you.
We really appreciate that. Early on, what you talked about in terms of being able to have community engagement was extremely important. That's really the motivation for a lot of the panel. One of the things that happened after Hurricane Katrina is that the city council and the mayor agreed that through the force of law that there must be community engagement on every project. So I think whether it's force of law or accessible resources coming from different organizations, that'll make a big difference. I'm also hearing a theme about women empowerment and who's at the helm, but I'll leave that there and we'll move on to the, the next speaker. I think that's, again, fascinating. And we're going to have Anna Koenig-Jermil. Anna is the CEO of Arwoods Foundation, a foundation that collaborates with researchers in urban development, focusing on built environment in cities. Anna is the former mayor of Stockholm, Sweden, and also former vice chair of C40 cities. And is also the former president of Europe's largest network of cities, Eurocities, and has served on the Council of Future Cities at the World Economic Forum. Anna was awarded as one of the top 5 mayors in Europe in 2021. Anna.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Paris, for welcoming me. I mean, every time I come here, I see so much improvement with all, I mean, I can't believe it. It goes so fast with bicycles and people are walking. And last night I was walking along the sand and I heard some music and people were just strolling around and I just, you know, it's such an amazing place. So congratulations to your achievements and also for Carlo Moreno and this initiative, since it's much needed that we need to spread the 15-minute city concept all over the world. And you can call it, I mean, we talked about this earlier today, it has different names. But I think what's unite the cities that wants to strive for this concept is actually to bringing people together and also to reduce the car dependency. And that's also crucial to make people interact more. And I will take it with me as well, the Proxilians, the new word Carlo Moreno's mentioned earlier today, because it's a lot about resilience today, but if you combine that also with proximity, we have something more to take back to our cities. So I would say I mean, if you walk 15 minutes, you will come quite far, but it's not a lot of time. It's a couple of thousand of steps, 2,000 approximately, and it's actually nudged us to be a more healthy city. I don't know if you've seen The Lancet this summer, but it's not 10,000 steps anymore, it's actually 7,000. And I know in Sweden, for example, everyone is looking at their phone with the data, the transparent data, like, have we walked 7 or 10,000 steps today? No, we have to walk another, route. So that's actually nudging and creating incentives for behavior change. And we can see that also when we have cities as London or other cities in Stockholm where we have sensors that also detect the air quality. And suddenly when this kind of data becomes transparent, the parents will be very upset. Like, what are you going to do about the air quality? My child is actually suffering here to school. So it's also to create some kind of sense of urgency, as we talked about, to make this behavior change and get the support and the pressure from the citizens. And as you know, Stockholm has a lot of startups. Also, we're very proud to brand ourselves as, the unicorn, the city with the largest number of unicorns compared to Silicon Valley. We're not there yet. And they are all now investing in longevity. It's billion of Swedish crowns invested in this. And they have lab and it's stem cell research, etc., etc. But actually, what I'm trying to also to get them aware of is also that the right city planning is actually also will increase our life. It's pro-life design, not anti-car. It's actually investing in our own health. So, of course, we can have all this very expensive research about living until you're 200, but we can also take the research about the walkability and the positive effect of a city where actually invite you to move. That's good for your health. So I think we could talk about also like the 7,000 step city, not only the 15-minute city for the future, and how we can design that kind of concept. You don't really think about it. That was what Jan Gehl also was mentioning today. Suddenly you just walked that kind of steps and you were not even thinking, like it wasn't attended to. You were just invited to do these changes. And also, not only physical health, it's also about the mental health perspective that we're going to talk about today. And even, we're talking about the proximity, we live closer than ever together, very dense. But in some cities, many cities actually around the world, we feel that we're not feeling close together. We don't know our neighbor. Involuntary loneliness is increasing. That's really a big problem in our cities. So we need to address that as well, and that we can do through the design of our cities. Who are we meeting at the streets or the public square? How do we mix? How do we speak to our neighbors to get these encounters to actually also become more strong relationships? And I think that it's also how we plan our public squares and our streets and our areas. So I will give you 3 examples how we include children, but also elderly, and also to have this young women approach when it comes to social inclusion and urban design. So we worked with researchers and looked at data. What kind of streets in our cities are close to schools, but also have a high level of traffic? And then we worked with 3 different streets, and now we are increasing the different streets. And we turned it into children's streets. So we invited the children to also design. I mean, many cities do this, but the amazing thing is in 1 year, the function of the street increased by 30%. The children's suggestion, actually, we applied it into actually action. So there was, you know, they could play, they had a theater, a scene, it was a beach in one street, and the traffic reduces, and the perception that it's a safe street, they were invited, actually increased as well. And then you can see that it was not only used because it was close to school, not only after school, but also on the evenings, the teacher could have outdoor classroom, etc. So that is one way you can do, and you can also measure it. Another thing is that we have an elderly population in our cities as well. I mean, 2100, there will be almost 900 million people, 80 plus, in our cities. Some will be like Jan Gehl, 88-year-old, but I mean, he's apparently like 48, you know, act like 48. But some of them will have difficulties physically to move around. So we also work with researchers to map cities to see where are the benches and which kind of distance are between the benches. And many cities, actually in Sweden and many places, actually just, okay, they can be in the park feeding doves, but not like the benches are not heading to the pharmacy or the culture hub or the library. So we need to work at that as well, to be an inclusive cities also for the elderly. Because as much as we want young people to come to our city, we have to realize as well, our cities will be occupied and they will have quality of life as well for the future. My time is running up. The third thing I would like to say is just we also worked with how can we bridge different areas together. So how can high-income groups or areas visit more segregated low-income areas? And then we worked with culture and sports, because our researchers said we can see that that is actually a factor that will attract different movement. So when we worked with special sport facilities and culture, people actually moved within the city, but also interacted with different socioeconomic profiles. So one barrier is, of course, to work with the girls. How can they feel that this is their place, their facility? And you have to invite them into the planning, into the how is the way to and back into the facility? Is it perceived as safe? Do you feel that this is your place? Are you actually involved in the design? All of these things, we can work with her city concept, as I know that UN Habitat and Shared City is working on. We will speak about that tomorrow. But we can, through sport and culture, and the researchers say so, actually integrate people in the city. So we should use that, not only to stay in our 15-minute areas, but actually also interact between the different areas.
Thank you so much. It really is tough cutting off a mayor, so my apologies. But what I did get from that, which totally relates to the policies and the discussions that have been held, is making the areas around schools, especially in Paris, where children can walk outside and not be concerned about being run over by cars. And I have seen many, many of the school transformations, and so this topic has been very helpful and very useful. Thank you. Our next speaker is Rania Hedeya. She's a regional director in UN Habitat's Regional Office for Arab States. With over 30 years of experience in development, she leads a regional program promoting sustainable urbanization, urban recovery, and climate resilience across 14 countries. Rania has driven key partnerships in resource mobilization, reactivating the GCC sub-regional office, and strengthening engagement in Libya. Formerly UN Habitat's County Program Director in Egypt, she supported the National Urban Policy and helped secure Egypt's hosting of the WUF 12. She also leads regional engagement in global forums, fosters collaboration with member states, and manages operations in conflict-affected areas. She began her UN career in UNDP, focusing on decentralization, strategic planning, and local development. Rania.
Thank you very much, thank you, and good evening, everybody. I'm really delighted to be with you today on this session, talking about inclusion, participatory governance approaches, cohesion, and so on. Let me start by saying that cities are growing and growing very fast, and they are actually growing at a rate that put our own planning and systems for planning cities and management of cities at a test. Currently, we have around maybe 60% of the overall population living in urban context, but the figure is expected to rise to reach up to 70 and 75% by the year 2050. And how we respond to that in terms of planning for this and in terms of managing this growth, urban growth, will determine whether we will be having inclusive cities that cater, that respond well to the citizens, that strengthen social cohesion, that offer good quality of lives to the citizens, or that deepens further inequalities and gap, and that have services out of reach of the people. So let me say that our approach in UN Habitat is very simple. We always say that good sustainable urbanization does not happen by coincidence. We need to plan for it. We need to manage it well, and we of course we have to have the proper financial systems to cater for the implementation of the strategies and the visions we develop for our cities. And we're speaking about planning in UN Habitat. We have principles, we advocate for principles that we think that if taken into consideration, they do result in good performing cities, more compact, dense, but more sustainable, responding well to the citizens, offering good quality of life. Those are such principles you refer to them a lot in your speech, the mixed land use, the proper social mix, the good and efficient street network that can cater and that for a good sustainable transit systems and so on. We also think that participation is key, is fundamental when we are planning and when we are managing the cities. Because if we don't rely on and ensuring that the proper stakeholders are involved in the planning processes and in decision-making, in prioritizing investments, and in creating and coming up with the proper visions and strategies of the city's visions and strategies, we miss the opportunity of responding well to the needs of the cities. So I can cite some examples of our work in the region where we think that when we use these tools of participation and also when we use these principles of planning, the result was good. I will cite one that we did in Egypt, in Upper Egypt. We worked a lot with the local government there on the application of a tool, we call it the land readjustment tool, because the urban growth that was happening in Upper Egypt in some of the locations and some of the cities happened on privately owned land. So we had to ensure that the community was there, the people that own those lands were there, they sit on the table with the local government and the relevant stakeholders and negotiate on land readjustment, because we had to ensure to to take out of these pieces of lands the proper percentages for the services. So people needed to have a trusted process, needed to build trust in the government, into local government, to give up some of their land. And the process was very, very interesting because those people, it started off not so well. There wasn't that much of a trust, but as we went along, the trust was built because everything was transparent, and we had to agree on the principles of negotiating and land readjustment, and also of value sharing, and that is why these plans were implementable, because we also linked them to a financial system that links to land value sharing and ensured that the implementation of these visions, and everybody was happy. And we have in Egypt, we have a problem of informality and unplanned growth because people don't trust the government when they start on designing the urban expansion context. But in this case, that was not the case at all. Another example, in Lebanon, for example, we worked a lot with on profiling, developing a city's profile. Again, with the local community, with the relevant stakeholders. And this is very important because we had to rely on data, and very accurate data, to determine the functionalities of the cities, the opportunities, the resources, the gaps, where, what existed in terms of services, health, and other, so that the decision-making later on is based on well-documented data and analytical process. And it was very interesting to see these profiles used by all other stakeholders, local government and other. I will cite just one more example from a crisis country, because
Speak right into the microphone.
Sorry?
Speak right into the microphone.
Sorry, okay. Another example in Iraq. When we were supporting the cities that were hit by the conflict in Iraq with the housing reconstruction, people were not encouraged to go back to Iraq, to their cities. But when we worked a lot with the government, central government and the local government, to ensure that the reconstruction process availed affordable houses, well connected, connected to the different labor markets, connected to different services, it really helped people decide that I can go back to my home and to my city and to my where I used to live, because the reconstruction process was good, was connecting these homes and houses to the related services and related markets around. And the result was, again, very good. People were really encouraged to go back. So the building back there, including participation and ensuring that the community participates and ensuring that you avail a good urban context for those people, returnees and IDPs, to come back is really important. I will just, the last example I will cite is the quality of life example. And this is an initiative that we have with the government of Saudi Arabia that looks into how we can rethink how cities understand and measure progress, and help cities also understand what people truly value. So this concept relies both on working with local governments and central government, but also evaluating and looking into what people, citizens themselves evaluate in terms of the functionalities of the cities, the performance of the cities, how the cities respond to their need, and so on. And it is quite an interesting one, because you could see the difference sometimes between how local government think that they are, and they are providing good services to their citizens, but when you come and ask the people, the prioritization is different. So finally, I just want to say that the examples as I gave come from different contexts. but the principle is one. When we plan well, when we manage well, when we ensure that there is a good participatory process, that the relevant stakeholders are with us in this process, and we also when we ensure that these plans and processes are aligned to good financial systems for implementation, the results are really good.
Thank you. She took away my summation, so I'm just going to go on to the next speaker because that was lovely. So we have two more. Ramon Morales is an economist and urbanist focused on port cities, public spaces, culture, and innovation. He is director at Placemaking Europe, founder of Vigla, and strategy advisor to cities and large-scale development projects. Previously, Ramon was Chief Strategy and Finance Officer for La Marina de Valencia and a board member of the Worldwide Network of Port Cities. Ramon co-founded Urbega, leading projects in Australia, Ecuador, Brazil, and Colombia, and has published extensively, including co-editing Our City, Countering Exclusion in Public Space, 2019. Ramon holds degrees in Valencia, Utrecht, and LSE, and has researched at the University of Valencia, Western Sydney University, and Flaxco. At the La Marina de Valencia, his small-scale intervention strategy increased visitors by 80% and revenue by 62% in 2 years. Ramon.
Thank you very much for having us. Also, particularly Chiara, Catherine, Carlos. Thank you, gracias por la confianza, por el cariño y por la oportunidad.
Thank you for the trust, for the welcome, and thank you for the teachings.
Almost at last, or hopefully not at least, but I came to share a very, very simple idea. Without placemaking, we cannot enable proximities, period. Our organization is a bit of a rara avis in this conference because most of the speakers are representing institutions. The foundation I work with sustains a network of grassroots practitioners. Placemaking Europe, we support practitioners working with communities, with tools, with learning and funding opportunities, and also with exchange opportunities. And over the years, we've engaged with around 10,000 practitioners that are working daily at street level across Europe and across the world. This story has grown exponentially in the last years. In the 90s, Fred Kent coined the term placemaking. And since then, it grows so much because there is so many people that have connected immediately. It's been that this is me, literally. I can transform the cities with my hands. I can do it myself beyond disciplines. It's not about architects. It's not about designers. It's about doers. I give you a couple of examples of the communities that we support. Nowadays, unfortunately, there was a tragic a tragic fatality 3 weeks ago in Amsterdam, where a kid was killed coming back by bike after a party, a 17-year-old kid. Since then, a growing number of citizens, activists, practitioners, mostly women, but not only women, have been reclaiming the right to enjoy the city after dark. In Valencia, in my hometown, after the terrible floods that we suffered in October, a group of citizens self-organized immediately to handle with the tragedy, and then after that, to create solutions and push for climate actions. This is the kind of communities that we support. We do live in very strange times, I believe, right? Some people wrongly saw proximity as a potential bomb of their freedom of movement. We were witnessing this craziness. Others feel that their liberty is threatened just because children play in the street after traffic is calm. So weird, right? But there is a common point among these fears. It is the lack of agency, or the lack of perceived agency. That's what I say, that without placemaking, there is no proximity. Because proximity is not only about matters, it's not only about minutes, it's about relationships, it's about trust, it's about belonging. I think during the last decades, we've been, as urbanists, living in this permanent tension, right, between scale and action, being with the small and the big, being with the short term and the strategic. So we remember that Mumford was warning us against narrow localism, while Jane Jacobs celebrating grassroots change. We've been a big criticals of modernism, but there's been no movement capable of providing so much quality of housing in such a small period of time as modernism did. As an alternative of modernism, we've been pushing was this participatory fostering of public space and greening that without housing has created eviction, displacement, raising rent, right? So we have to find a coalition to have a bridge between those visions. And I think the 15-minute city gives us the systemic lenses, and placemaking gives us the local dimension. So we need both. We need frameworks, and we do need social life. So what is placemaking? Placemaking is a pan-global practice movement. It's just a network of doers that just without clear hierarchy just start doing, as I said, no? They are locally rooted, and we try to help them to connect globally. We at Placemaking Europe are just a node. The beautiful thing, and I think we are unique as a network, we have a placemaking in every corner. There is not many movements that can point out who is changing cities at a street level for placemaking Mongolia, placemaking Malaysia, placemaking Mexico, all across the world, right? But if we think like theoretically what I'm talking about three things that have to come together, and that's the beauty of it. It is on the one hand, the materialization of the right to the city. And the second element is the innovative and experimental side of urbanism, lighter, quicker, cheaper, tactical urbanism, try, check, learn. And the third element, and the most important one, I think, is that we should understand the future as a collective construct, right? We have to have the capacity to dream our cities. And the thing is, we've been there's been an extensive trajectory of that, but it's not only about grassroots, right? We've been not only about grassroots urbanists, there are also many placemakers inside the municipalities. There are a lot of innovators that are very determined, very passionate, they are making change, but generally finding a lot of constraints within cities, right? So we are also trying to help and elevate their work, and I give you some examples that I think are very interesting of the cities we work with. Rotterdam, for instance, has implemented tremendous interesting policies which call the right to challenge. So that means that if groups of citizens feel that they can provide a public service better than the public sector do, they can challenge the city. So there is one case of a street market where a collective of neighbors defy the city to manage waste way better. And the way I achieve full circularity from taking the waste from the market to use it for food with the community, cooking with refugees, and so on. Trenčín, a beautiful city in Slovakia, has used placemaking as the vertebral element of them becoming the cultural capital of Europe in 2026. The city of Wrocław in Poland is sort of embedding those principles of participatory governance in the 2050 strategy that is focused on solidarity, compactness, and multifunctional spaces. We are grassroots, but I think we've been this movement is so powerful that at the end, politicians had to join somehow. In February 2025, 12 mayors of European cities gathered in The Hague, in the European capital, on the world capital of human rights. They gathered and they shared that they were not doing enough. And to do enough, to foster what we are discussing here, they had to invest more effectively, they should involve the citizens meaningfully, and they should particularly innovate from the inside. So, in a nutshell, I say that placemaking is the engine of proximity because it shows up where care, creativity, and connection are needed the most. In parks that are designed for movement and health, in social gatherings that are making people not feel lonely, in food that brings cultures around the same table. That's what I see, the combination of placemaking and proximities as a bit of an immune system for cities, because they are constantly repairing, regenerating, and protecting everyday life.
Thank you so much. I know it's been difficult today. I know we won't have much time for any Q&A, but we know how to find people's emails. So I want to say here is our last speaker for the panel. Adalisa Castillo is the director of Santo Domingo West, correct? I hope. Adalisa worked for the mayor since 2002 after he was elected, and she'll talk about that. 4 different times. She started in the social department and has done a lot of different projects for the city. And I'm going to just turn it over to her to really give us an opportunity to learn more about what the mayor has done and what you're doing. Welcome.
Sí, muy buenas tardes a todos. En nombre del alcalde de Santo Domingo Oeste, el alcalde Francisco Peña.
So, on behalf of Santo Domingo Mayor, I would like to thank you all, to thank the Paris, the city of Paris and its mayor, Anne Hidalgo. Thank you for this initiative. And thank you for organizing the conference. So, I will break ice. I know we are reaching the end of the day, and I'd like to say that Santo Domingo Este is a city where people actually work and are committed, and they are fighting, and they want to thrive. And I'm one example of resilience, because in 22, I started to work with the mayor, Francisco Peña, in the renewal and the cleaning of the city as well. And today, 23 years later, I'm in charge of the administrative aspect of things when I started actually in politics. So I'd like to tell you a few words that were written by our mayor. And he sent his apologies, but actually yesterday, we were actually inaugurating a new metro line that links our city to the Santo Domingo province, and that goes through different municipalities. And so it was a very important event that it could not actually be missing. And that's why he's not here with us. So to create sustainable proximities in Santo Domingo, where sustainable proximity ensure that population has access very quickly by foot or through public transport to essential services such as health, education, employment, leisure, shops, and culture, and nature as well. And all those activities have the same objective, which is to improve our citizens' quality of life. And they also contribute to creating a safer and healthy environment for our residents. There are many challenges in our city, but there are also many opportunities that help us move forward and create a more sustainable future. Among the different initiatives that we've launched, to make our city more pleasant, more livable, we've actually redesigned the administrative areas. We've also reorganized the public services to improve the citizens' quality of life. And we are actually focusing on connectivity and how we can actually connect the different neighborhoods in our city. So we are, for example, restoring pavements and streets, also metro lines and all public services and transports, so that our citizens can actually move around the city in the safest of ways. We also adding new street lights that are solar powered, so that all streets are lit, and this will also increase the security and the safety in different areas.
Alongside public service provisions such as schools, health services, markets, and sports centres that are close to communities. Strengthening community centres will be key to making them multi-purpose spaces that not only offer education and training, but also culture activities, but also administrative processes and housing projects. We are advocating for the regulation of land use and making places such as parks and riverside places more green with trees and flowers and other kinds of green spaces. So as part of this project, we have also included the rehabilitation of the local river through initiatives such as green roofs and community vegetable patches in schools as well. And we are working on the informal trade sector with proper shelters and local markets to foster sustainable economic growth. Promoting our culture and local heritage is another of our flagship initiatives. We are developing initiatives to rescue our historic heritage, such as the Bombay and Palabi heritage. These are ruins that date back to 1835, where the first settlements were created. Furthermore, we are promoting our culture as local heritage. This is one of our key initiatives. We are developing new initiatives to really rescue our historic wealth, and we are looking at how our natural spaces, the river, the beach, can be used for activities with families in the outdoors. Santo Domingo has vast potential. In order to grow sustainably and in a balanced way, which is key to our action, we are aligned with the 2030 Agenda's principles.
And we have 1 more minute.
In order to meet the Sustainable Development Goals, we aim to eradicate poverty, improve access to health, to education, and to promote gender equality and ensure access to clean, safe water and to sanitation, and to foster decent work and economic growth. We will continue to work with the help of God and anyone who has helped to do their bit to build a Santo Domingo that is more sustainable, inclusive, and full of opportunities for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We are done with our panel, and I want to thank everyone, and I'm going to be turning it over, but I want to just say throughout this day, the word that just kept coming up, of course, is quality of life and community engagement, but I want to close the session and just say, I just feel happiness. So I hope you do as well. May I turn this over to you? Thank you. Please give them a round of applause again. Thank you.